March 15, 1944. High above Brunswick, Germany, Captain James "Red" Holt throws his P-47 Thunderbolt into a sharp left turn, eyes raking the empty air above the bomber stream. 800 B-17 Flying Fortresses thunder toward their targets, each one carrying 10 young Americans and enough explosives to erase an entire city block. Somewhere in that endless gray sky, the German fighters are forming up. Holt can feel it in his bones. The numbers are horrific. Since the beginning of January, the 8th Air Force has lost 284 heavy bombers. That's 2,240 men who will never return home. Escort squadrons like Holt's 359th can't cover every angle all the time, and the Luftwaffe knows it. They've devised a brutal new tactic: ignore the escorts entirely and go after the wounded. They sweep in on the stragglers, bombers limping behind the main formation, engines trailing smoke, props feathered, desperately trying to stay in the air. Easy targets. Just yesterday, Holt watched helplessly as 6 FW-190s descended on a crippled B-17 named Memphis Belle II. The bomber survived 43 seconds. That morning's intelligence briefing confirmed the same pattern across 37 missions. German fighter units are now singling out any aircraft showing visible battle damage, refusing to engage the healthy bombers or their escorts, and striking from positions 3 miles away, far beyond the reach of the American fighters guarding the main formation. By the time Holt's squadron races to intercept the attack, the kill has already happened. "We're protecting the wrong airplanes," Holt mutters into his oxygen mask. What he doesn't know, what no one in the 359th has any inkling of, is that exactly 4 hours later, a 24-year-old artist from Brooklyn, with no military aviation experience whatsoever, will sketch an idea on a napkin that will flip the entire situation upside down. An idea so simple and so outrageous that Holt's squadron commander will dismiss it instantly as the dumbest thing I've ever heard. A scheme involving paint, theater, and warfare's oldest ruse: make strength appear as weakness. Within 30 days, this unorthodox tactic will lure 40 German fighters into carefully engineered traps. It will save an estimated 180 American bomber crewmen. It will technically violate at least 3 articles of the Geneva Convention, and it will remain classified for 47 years. This is the story of how one fighter squadron began painting their aircraft to look damaged and turned the hunters into the hunted. But the crisis didn't begin in March 1944. Its roots stretch back to a German ace named Hauptmann Josef Pips Priller, who, in December 1943, noticed something Allied commanders had failed to grasp: damaged bombers behave predictably. A healthy bomber fights. A crippled bomber flees. It separates from the herd. Its escort cannot defend what it cannot reach. We do not hunt the strong, we call the weak. The results were catastrophic. In January 1944, 73% of all American bombers lost over Germany were stragglers, aircraft falling behind due to flak damage, mechanical failure, or wounded crew. The Luftwaffe refined Wolfpack tactics designed explicitly to exploit this vulnerability. German fighters loiter at a distance, observing the formation for telltale signs: smoke trails, a dead engine, loss of altitude. Then they strike. American Fighter Command tries every countermeasure they can devise. They assign helper fighters to escort damaged bombers home. The Germans simply wait until these escorts hit their fuel limit and turn back. They increase fighter sweeps around the bomber corridors. The Germans attack in the gaps. They create new radio procedures for damaged aircraft to call for help. The Germans jam the frequencies. On February 28, 1944, Major General William Kepner, commander of the 8th Fighter Command, calls an emergency meeting. "Gentlemen, we have a problem that tactics alone cannot solve. The enemy has turned our wounded into bait. Every damaged bomber becomes a death sentence for its crew and for the fighters we send to rescue it." The experts agree. The only true solution is preventing bombers from being hit in the first place. Better armor, tighter formations, improved defensive guns. But those are engineering fixes that require months, sometimes years. Meanwhile, men are dying every single day. Squadron leaders are burning out. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman of the 359th Fighter Group hurls his cap across the briefing room after losing 3 fighters trying to save a single damaged B-24. They're using our wounded as traps. We spot a limping bomber, we rush to help, and suddenly we're outnumbered 4-1, with half our fuel gone. It's genius, it's vicious, and I have no idea how to stop it. The tactical consensus is grim and unanimous. There is no counter to this strategy except one: abandon the stragglers. Quietly, several senior officers suggest a survival of the fittest policy. Damaged aircraft must be left to their fate. The proposal reaches General Eisenhower's desk. He writes one word across it in red pencil: never. But noble intentions don't stop the bleeding. The losses mount. By mid-March, bomber crews fear being damaged more than being shot down outright. At least destruction is quick.
Being crippled means enduring a slow, 30-minute death chase across enemy airspace while German fighters take turns tearing your aircraft apart, and while the pilots trying to save you die in the attempt. The psychological impact becomes unmistakable. Mission abort rates climb. Pilots start reporting damage that maintenance crews can't find. Some crews even request transfers to the Pacific, reasoning that at least the Japanese fight directly instead of preying on the wounded. Into this desperate situation steps Technical Sergeant Daniel Weiss, age 24, formerly a commercial artist for the J. Walter Thompson Advertising Agency, now the crew chief of the 399th Fighter Squadron. Weiss has never seen aerial combat. He has never sat in a fighter cockpit. His duties revolve around landing gear hydraulics and painting victory markings on fuselages. What he does have is an art degree from Cooper Union, 3 years of experience designing deceptive advertising campaigns, and, most importantly, an outsider's mind free from the assumptions career officers rely on. On March 15th, sitting in the Officers Club, he begins sketching an idea on a cocktail napkin. Weiss never set out to change the tactics of air warfare. He simply wanted to stop watching pilots return with the hollow stare of men who no longer expect to survive. Born in Brooklyn to immigrant parents who ran a kosher delicatessen, Weiss spent his childhood sketching on butcher paper and dreaming of becoming a professional artist. Reality intervened during the Depression, and he ended up at J.W. Thompson, creating ads for Pond's Cold Cream and Lucky Strike cigarettes. His specialty was making products appear to be something they weren't, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary, manipulating perception. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, Weiss tried to enlist as a pilot. He failed the vision test due to mild color blindness. He tried again for bombardier training and failed once more. The Army Air Forces assigned him as a crew chief, an outcome Weiss later described as training to be Rembrandt and being ordered to paint houses. Still, he was meticulous, and he understood better than anyone the difference between how something looked and what it actually was. When damaged fighters limped home, Weiss was the one who inspected the punctured fuselage, coordinated repairs, and returned the aircraft to flying condition. After 6 months, he had learned to read battle damage like a language. The pattern of flak fragmentation on aluminum, the way bullet strikes cluster, the distinction between damage that kills an airplane and damage that merely frightens the crew. On the night of March 15th, Weiss sits at a corner table in the Officers Club, a place technically off-limits to enlisted personnel, but he's tolerated because he's well-liked and because fighters often seek his company when trying to process the day's losses. Captain Holt is already 3 whiskeys in, replaying the B-17 he failed to save. They can smell a wounded aircraft like sharks scenting blood. How do you fight an enemy who won't engage unless he knows he has the advantage? Weiss is only half listening, scribbling absent-mindedly on a napkin, an old nervous habit. He sketches a P-47, then begins adding exaggerated battle damage, smoke trails that don't quite look natural, bullet holes too perfectly spaced. It's a caricature, a theatrical imitation of real harm. Then he freezes mid-stroke. He stares at the napkin, at the fake damage he has drawn. What if we make them think they have the advantage? Weiss murmurs. Holt doesn't hear him. Weiss repeats it louder. Captain, what if we make them think they have the advantage now? Holt looks up, irritated. What the hell are you talking about, Sergeant? He pushes the napkin across the table. Your P-47 flying escort, but painted to look damaged, trailing fake smoke, bullet holes painted on, stage wounds, flying like it's crippled, falling behind the formation, looking weak. Holt's expression shifts. His eyes narrow. That's camouflage in reverse, he says slowly. That's bait. Exactly, Weiss replies. They hunt wounded aircraft, so we give them a wounded aircraft with teeth. He sketches 6 more P-47s diving in from above. The trap is obvious. Holt studies the drawings for a long time, saying nothing. That's turning escorts into decoys, he finally says. I'm talking about turning our strengths into their weaknesses. The next morning, Weiss expects to be laughed out of the briefing room. Instead, Lieutenant Colonel Dickman listens in silence, absorbing every detail. When Weiss finishes, Dickman says 6 words that change the course of the air war. Show me. You have 48 hours. Weiss commandeers a corner of Hangar 7 and 3 P-47s slated for routine maintenance. He gathers the only people who can help him pull this off. Corporal Tommy Chen, a former Disney animator, Private First Class Marcus White, a stage makeup artist from Harlem, and Staff Sergeant Irene Kowalski of the Women's Army Corps, who grew up working in her father's auto body shop in Detroit. Over the next 2 days, the team creates something that is part art project, part engineering puzzle, and part theatrical illusion. The first problem, painted-on damage will never fool anyone up close. Weiss needs battle scars that hold up from 500 yards away. White proposes using cellulose acetate sheets, clear theater gels, heat-formed and painted to resemble torn aluminum panels, then mounted with quick-release fasteners. From a distance, they look indistinguishable from real combat damage.
Up close, the fake panels snap off in seconds. The next problem is smoke. Real engine trouble produces dense black exhaust, but Weiss needs something controllable. He disassembles a captured BF-109 smoke generator system and builds a belly-mounted canister that emits stage smoke on command, white or black, activated from the cockpit. To a trained mechanic, it looks artificial, but to a German fighter pilot 3,000 yards away deciding whether to pounce, it looks like a straggler about to fall out of the sky. The third hurdle is selling the illusion through flight behavior. A damaged aircraft doesn't just appear different, it moves differently. Weiss writes a performance checklist: reduce speed by 40 miles per hour, slowly lose altitude, feather a propeller intermittently, fly slightly out of trim. Captain Holt practices the routine until he can imitate a crippled fighter perfectly while retaining full combat capability. On March 17th, the team rolls all 3 modified P-47s out for Lieutenant Colonel Dickman to inspect. He circles each aircraft, examining the details, tapping the faux damage panels, watching the smoke units cycle on and off. He's silent for a long moment before saying, "This violates the laws of war. Deception of this sort, false distress, breaks convention." "We're not altering our markings," Weiss interjects, then remembers himself. "Sir, these are clearly still American aircraft. We're simply exaggerating their condition." "It goes against every tactical doctrine in the book," Dickman replies. "Fighters are designed to attack, not play the wounded animal." "Sir," Captain Holt cuts in, "the Germans made our bombers the bait. This is returning the favor." Dickman pauses again, weighing the risk. Finally, he turns to his operations officer. How long to train an entire squadron to fly this profile? 48 hours, sir. Do it, and no one speaks of this. No one. Not other groups, not intelligence, not even God Almighty. He adds, staring at Weiss. If this fails, Sergeant, you'll spend the rest of the war painting numbers on latrine doors. Weiss swallows hard. Understood, sir. Word travels far faster than classified orders ever do. Within 72 hours, Colonel Zemke of the 56th Fighter Group hears whispers about the decoy stunt over in the 359th Group. He drives over in person to see it. Zemke watches as 3 damaged P-47s stagger across the sky, trailing smoke and wobbling like they're ready to fall apart. 8 more Thunderbolts circle high overhead at 15,000 feet, invisible to anyone below. The decoys look flawless, helpless, easy prey. When they land, Zemke corners Dickman. Does 8th Fighter Command know about this? Not yet. They'd shut it down instantly. That's my assessment, too. Zemke, with 17.75 confirmed kills and a reputation for rewriting air combat doctrine, carries enormous weight. Then he says the sentence that seals the program's fate. I want in. This is either brilliance or a court-martial, but either way, I want my group involved before headquarters kills it. March 20th brings the demonstration that will decide everything. Fighter Command dispatches Major General William Kepner and a panel of 12 officers to evaluate the method and determine whether to authorize or ban it outright. The briefing room at Bodisham is jammed with squadron commanders, intelligence analysts, Air Force lawyers, and one deeply nervous technical sergeant who is rapidly questioning every decision that landed him there. Weiss presents the full concept: the fake damage, the theatrical smoke, the flight behavior, the ambush tactics. He uses terms like deceptive engagement protocol and asymmetric response strategy because they sound more official than we're going to fool them with paint and trap them. The legal officer interrupts almost immediately. This is perfidy under Article 23 of the Hague Convention. Using false distress to lure the enemy is expressly prohibited. We're not signaling distress. We're not flying false colors. It's camouflage, just unconventional camouflage. Camouflage hides you. This makes you dishonest. The room erupts. 16 officers speaking at once. Some are desperate to try anything that might stop the slaughter. Others insist it crosses an ethical line. We are not the Germans. We don't fight with tricks. This is painted deception. We erode our integrity. This could save hundreds of lives. The fight splits exactly where you'd expect. Combat pilots want it approved. Staff officers want it buried. Kepner lets them argue for 3 full minutes, then stands. The room falls silent.
I have a question for our legal officer, he says. When the Germans developed tactics deliberately targeting our damaged bombers, did they violate any convention? No, sir. Ungentlemanly, but not illegal. And when we paid our aircraft to resemble damaged ones, you say that is illegal. Yes, sir, it is deception. Like every camouflage pattern since the dawn of warfare? That's different, the lawyer says. This makes the enemy uncomfortable. Kepner's voice turns cold. The Germans turned our wounded men into bait. They transformed compassion into a weapon. And you're telling me we can't counter it because it's unsportsmanlike? The lawyer falls silent. Kepner turns to Captain Holt. You've flown this profile. Can you still fight? Yes, sir. Full offensive and defensive capability. We're simply acting. Colonel Zemke. Zemke rises. Sir, this is the first genuinely original tactical innovation I've seen in theater. For 18 months, we've been reacting to German initiatives. This flips the script. It forces them to react to us. I recommend limited authorization immediately. Kepner nods. 3 missions. Limited trials. If casualty rates rise, we stop. If kill ratios don't improve, we stop. If the Germans adapt, we stop. He fixes his eyes on Dickman. But if it works, Colonel, every fighter group in the 8th Air Force will be trained in this protocol within 30 days. Silence. One last question, Kepner says, turning to Weiss. Sergeant, you're the artist behind this. Yes, sir. Do you understand that if this fails, men will die because of your idea? Weiss answers without hesitation. Sir, men are dying every day because we have no idea. I'd rather try something than do nothing. Kepner almost smiles. Carry on. Before diving into the first combat test, the narrator adds, if you're finding this story as gripping as we are, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you deeply researched military history, real tactics, real people, real consequences. Now, let's return to March 1944, where genius and madness are about to prove just how thin the line between them really is. March 22nd, 1944. Mission 255. The target, the ball-bearing factories of Schweinfurt. The 359th Fighter Squadron launches 12 P-47 Thunderbolts. 4 are disguised decoys. 8 are hunters. Captain Holt leads the decoy element. His P-47, scarred with painted bullet holes and fitted with smoke generators, slips 2,000 yards behind the bomber stream. He throttles back to 180 miles per hour, dangerously slow for a fighter, but perfect for impersonating a battle-damaged aircraft. He flips the smoke switch. White vapor pours from Holt's engine cowling, visible from miles across the frozen sky. At 24,000 feet, Lieutenant James Fisher circles with the hunter element, watching Holt through binoculars. Even knowing it's an act, Fisher has to admit, Holt looks convincingly crippled. If I didn't know better, Fisher radios, I'd be calling for a rescue run. They don't have to wait long. At 13:47 hours, German radar operators at Stade report a damaged American fighter lagging behind the bomber stream and steadily losing altitude. The sighting is relayed to Jagdgeschwader 1. Hauptmann Heinz Baer, a 179 Victory Ace, scrambles 6 Bf-109s. Standard procedure. High-value kill, minimal risk, great for morale. Baer spots Holt from 8 miles away. A P-47 belching smoke, wobbling, sinking toward the cloud deck. Classic straggler behavior. Baer doesn't hesitate. He leads his formation into attack position. 6 fighters versus 1 doomed American. At 12,000 feet, Holt stays in character. He sees the German formation high and behind, sliding into the kill triangle. His right hand on the throttle, left on the stick, every instinct screaming to break or dive or fight. But he keeps the act alive, trusting the 8 thunderbolts he cannot see are watching from above. The Germans commit. Baer lines up his shot at 400 yards. An effortless kill, one more for the board. Then Fisher's voice cuts through the radio. Now! Holt slams the throttle forward. The crippled P-47 erupts to full power. The smoke generator shuts off. The fighter leaps to 400 miles per hour, climbing hard. The fake damage panels rip away in a slipstream. In 3 seconds, Holt transforms from helpless prey into a fully operational predator. The Germans have one heartbeat to understand what's happening before 8 P-47s hurtle out of the sun at 450 miles per hour, engines screaming at war emergency power. Baer rolls hard right, but too late. Fisher's opening burst whips into the Bf-109's left wing, shredding the control surfaces. Baer's skill saves his life. He manages a crash landing near Osnabrück. His wingman, Lieutenant Werner Schmidt, is not as fortunate. Two P-47s bracket him simultaneously. His fighter comes apart in midair. The entire ambush lasts 90 seconds. When it ends, 4 German fighters destroyed, 1 damaged, 1 pilot killed, 3 captured, 2 escaped. American losses, 0. Not even a bullet hole on any P-47. Intelligence officers pore over the gun camera footage for hours, struggling to believe what they're seeing. A crippled fighter that wasn't crippled, and a Luftwaffe formation flying willingly into an ambush in broad daylight. They should have recognized the ruse. They didn't. Within 48 hours, Hauptmann Baer is debriefed by Luftwaffe intelligence. His report is circulated across every fighter group in Germany. American fighters now using deception. Aircraft appearing damaged may be fully operational bait. Exercise extreme caution. But the warning arrives too late. The tactic is already spreading. March 24. 3 decoy missions over Bremen. 6 German fighters shot down, 2 probables. American losses, 1 P-47 with light flak damage. March 27. 2 decoy missions escorting B-24s to Mannheim. 8 German fighters destroyed. American losses, 0. March 29th. A large coordinated operation. 6 squadrons trained in the new tactic. 12 decoy aircraft spread across the bomber stream. The Luftwaffe loses 17 fighters. American bomber losses drop to their lowest level in 3 months. The numbers become impossible to deny. Before decoy tactics, January to 15, 1944, average bomber losses per mission was 5.2%. Fighter loss ratio, 1 German kill for every 3 American. Straggler survival rate, 27%. After decoy tactics, March 22nd to April 15th, 1944. Average bomber losses, 2.8%. Fighter loss ratio, 4.7 German losses for every American. Straggler survival rate, 73%. The 359th Fighter Squadron alone records 40 confirmed kills in 30 days. Even more crucial, bomber crews report the German fighters are hesitating, second-guessing, breaking off attacks that once would have been decisive lunges towards exposed stragglers. Captured German pilot Lieutenant Klaus Hartmann tells interrogators on April 3rd, "We cannot trust our eyes anymore. What appears weak may be strong. What appears wounded may be a trap. We are ordered to be aggressive, but how can we be aggressive when aggression leads to ambush? They have turned our own tactics against us." The psychological shock matches the tactical disruption. German pilots begin to avoid anything that looks damaged, real or fake. As a result, genuinely crippled bombers begin making it home far more often. The Luftwaffe's fearsome Wolfpack doctrine, devastating for 4 months, collapses in just 3 weeks. By April 15th, every fighter group in the 8th Air Force has at least 1 squadron trained in decoy operations. The idea jumps next to the 9th Air Force, then to the RAF, then to the Mediterranean theater. Maintenance crews become masters of creating theatrical damage removable and reusable between sorties. And throughout all of it, Technical Sergeant Daniel Weiss oversees a classified workshop in Hangar 7, teaching airmen the art of deception, teaching them how to make strength masquerade as weakness, and proving that sometimes the most effective camouflage isn't hiding at all. It's lying. His one idea saves an estimated 180 bomber crewmen in just 30 days.
If you're enjoying this deep exploration into tactical ingenuity, consider hitting the like button and sharing this video. We're a small channel dedicated to revealing the stories bigger channels overlook, and your engagement directly supports our work. You'll find links to primary documents and pilot memoirs in the description. Now let's look at what happened after the war. The final statistics compiled after VE Day tell a story that military academies will analyze for decades. Between March 22nd and May 8, 1944, squadrons equipped with decoy modifications scored 247 confirmed kills, with a kill ratio of 6.2 to 1 in their favor, the highest achieved by any tactical innovation in the European theater. Roughly 890 bomber crewmen are estimated to have survived missions they statistically should have died on, thanks directly to the reduced German aggression brought about by the decoy strategy. But the numbers, impressive as they are, pale next to the human accounts. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Dickman, who authorized the first test, retired as a brigadier general in 1963. In his unpublished memoir, he wrote, "We spent years perfecting armor, guns, engines. A sergeant with an art degree and a napkin defeated all of that with paint and psychology. The most effective weapon is often the one the enemy never anticipates." Captain James "Red" Holt, who flew the first decoy mission, then 47 more, survived the war with 12 confirmed victories and a Distinguished Flying Cross. Speaking at the Air Force Museum in 1987, he told the audience, "People ask whether flying is bait scared me. Brother, every mission scared me. But this one I had control. I wasn't hoping the Germans didn't see me. I was making sure they did. There's power in that." Hub Zimka, the legendary group commander who championed the idea early, called it the most innovative use of psychological warfare I ever witnessed in combat. His fighter groups adopted the tactic as standard procedure, spreading it throughout the entire 8th Air Force. And then there's Daniel Weiss, the Brooklyn artist turned accidental tactician. He received the Legion of Merit for exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding service. The award citation remained classified until 1991 and described his contribution only as development of advanced camouflage methods. Weiss requested a return to routine crew chief duties and refused officer promotion 3 separate times. After the war, he went back into advertising. He never publicly discussed the decoy program. When a military historian tracked him down in 1989, he granted a brief interview. "I just solved a visual problem," he said. "The Germans were looking for wounded aircraft, so we showed them wounded aircraft. It wasn't genius. It was knowing the difference between what people see and what's actually there. Advertising taught me that. You show people what you want them to notice." When asked if he felt pride in the tactic, he replied, "I'm proud it saved lives. I'm not proud it had to." The entire fake damage program remained classified until 1991. Modern air forces still study it as a textbook example of asymmetric tactical innovation, using deception to force an enemy to change doctrine without needing superior technology. The Israeli Air Force employed similar principles in 1973. The U.S. Navy used deceptive ship profiles during the Gulf War. But perhaps the most powerful legacy comes from a single unexpected source. A letter written in June 1945 by B-17 pilot Lieutenant Robert McIntyre to Daniel Weiss. "Dear Sergeant Weiss, you don't know me and I don't know you. But on April 7, 1944, my bomber took flak over Magdeburg. We lost 2 engines and dropped behind the formation. I called for fighters, expecting none. Instead, 3 P-47s appeared, painted to look as damaged as we were. The Germans attacked. Your fighters were waiting. They downed 4 before the rest fled. All 10 of us made it home. Because of paint. Because of deception. Because someone realized that looking weak while being strong is sometimes the best strength. My fiancé and I are getting married next month. We'll have children. They'll have children. All because you saw camouflage differently. Thank you, Lieutenant Robert McIntyre, 381st Bombardment Group." Innovation in warfare rarely comes from those expected to innovate. It arises from outsiders who view the problem unburdened by tradition. A commercial artist looked at aerial combat and saw a visual deception challenge. Veteran fighter pilots looked at the same situation and saw only tactical constraints. Daniel Weiss's brilliance wasn't technological,
It was perceptual. He understood that war is shaped as much by what the enemy believes as by what truly exists. The Germans believed damaged aircraft were easy prey. Weiss transformed that belief into their downfall. The lesson outlives the war. In any conflict, the side that controls perception controls the battlefield. The strongest position isn't always appearing strong. Sometimes it's convincing the enemy you're weak, right up until the instant you strike. 40 German fighters fell for painted wounds and staged smote in a single month. They fell because they trusted their eyes. And someone understood that trust could be weaponized. That isn't just tactical innovation. It is the deepest truth of conflict. The most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. And sometimes the most powerful weapon is a sketch on a napkin drawn by someone no one expected to change the war.